Hey guys, here we are for lesson number 2, and it's still dealing with geometry basics for our first unit. So we already know our title, we know what unit. Our essential question hasn't changed here. How do the tools of geometry, such as definitions, theorems, and properties, aid in developing our ability to logically deduce conclusions? Now, as we are moving on to our second topic here, you can add this to your table of contents, measuring and constructing segments. Of course, depending on where you are with page number, you would fill in a different page number to get started. So, what are we learning to do? Well, we're learning to measure and construct line segments. So today, you are successful when you can measure a line segment, copy a line segment, and finally, explain and use the segment addition postulate. So we will go through those throughout the lesson, and you can self-evaluate later on. Some of the vocabulary that we're going to be focused on is postulate, axiom, coordinate, construction, and congruent segments. So that's what we'll be looking at today. So keep on building your vocab. Remember, mathematics is a language. You'll see that I've kind of set it up in Cornell Note style and gave you a question to help you if you're going to start that process for taking notes. Now, an axiom or a postulate, it's very clear, it's very simple. Basically, they're statements that are accepted without proof. So you don't have to prove them, we just accept them. A lot of times we can say that we can use them for assumptions as well. So if you're developing a question out of this, you could say, how would you define axiom or postulate? The two words can be used, what we say, interchangeably. So you can use either word and it means the same thing. So one of the postulates is called the ruler postulate. So when you're looking at this, you're pretty much looking at a ruler and you're matching points on a line to real numbers as if we had a ruler. So you're just finding the length between two different points. That's what you do when you use a ruler anyways. So here, when we're writing it and you look at the distance between the 2 points, you could actually subtract them together, but you're taking the absolute value. Remember, distance is not negative because it's a measurement that you're using there, and we're going to measure it positively. So it's how far apart those two things are. So how far is A from B? You may want to notice the notation there when we wrote for the distance between points A and B. It has A, B, both capital letters to identify the point it's starting at to the point it's ending at. So that segment length is given there. Notice the difference between these two examples here when it comes to your notation though. AB is the distance between the 2 points, so it's the measurement of it. Whereas the other AB with a little line segment over it means line segment AB. You do have to be careful with your notation because it's very important that you write things the correct way. They have two different meanings. Okay? It's almost like having an accent mark in another language at times. Construction. Now, of course, you might have heard the word construction in general when people are constructing a building. Now, in geometry, we also have constructions, or a construction, which is a geometric drawing. But when we do our constructions in geometry, we're only using a compass and a straight edge. Now, a straight edge is anything that allows you to draw a straight line. For example, a ruler is an example of a straight edge because it has a straight side to it. So now we move into looking at copying a segment. So we can copy a segment by using a compass and a straight edge to do that. You can pause the video and look at the below steps to copying a segment. Now that we've talked about copying segments, if you look, there's something called congruent segments. So you've copied one segment and now you've made what we call a duplicate. Now the two segments that you have, the original and the copy, could be considered congruent segments. Well, what do we mean by that? We mean the fact that they have the same length and they're both the same shape. Because they're both line segments, that's one piece to being congruent segments, and the second piece is that their length is the same. So if you were to measure both lengths, they would be identical. We use a different symbol when we're talking about congruency. So when two things are congruent, again, they have the same shape and the same size. In this case, if we have segments that are congruent, you'll notice how it's written AB with a little line segment over it is congruent to CD with a line segment over it. Whereas if the two lengths are equal, right, the distance between point A and B, the starting and ending point, it's equal to the distance from C to D. So the two lengths are equal, the segments are congruent. This is something that will continue when we start looking at angles as well. Then we have what's called the segment addition postulate. Basically, what's happening here is we're saying that if we have two smaller segments that are connected together, so they share an ending point and a starting point, for example, A to B and B to C, when I add those two smaller ones together, it's going to equal the length from A all the way to C. So from that starting point to the second end point. So we call that the segment addition postulate. So if you were to take like if you were to take a pencil and that was your segment, and you broke it in half, or you broke it into two different pieces, again, the length of the full pencil would still be the same if I put them back together. That's the idea behind the segment addition postulate. So now we're at the part where you can make your own choice. You could start the practice, but if you're having any difficulties with it, you're going to probably want to wait and ask in class for help. Otherwise, you could stop here and you can wait until class starts to do your practice. But if you'd like, you're going to want to start where you're at in consideration to the levels. Level 1, 2, or 3, it's up to you. Depends on where you feel comfortable. You can pause here if you'd like to get the list of level 1. You can pause here if you'd like level 2. And finally, you can pause here if you'd like to work on level 3. All right, see you all in class.